Hi, Warren.
Hi,
Doug Rosendahl.
glad to meet you.
This is quite an airplane.
Yeah, they're pretty faithful old airplanes.
How long have you had it?
Well, we started dusting with that in 1946.
1946. How many, I see you got quite a collection of Stearmans around here. How many do you have?
Well, right now there's 7. I had 17 at one time.
17 Stearmans.
Yeah.
All of them 450s?
No, this is a 450. That next one is 600.
When you started spraying with Stearmans or dusting with Stearmans, what engines did you start with?
Well, we started with 220 in here.
220. And how much material could you carry with the 220?
Well, it depended on how much nerve you had.
I believe that. I believe that.
You didn't crowd it. You just sat in there and let it fly, and it'd do it.
Yeah.
We carried 1,000 pounds of fertilizer early in the spring. Then in August, when the air got hot, I got down there, got dumped in the Buffalo River with 300 pounds in it. So it depended on the temperature what you could carry.
Yeah. I bet this airplane can tell a lot of stories.
It's got some. It's got some.
Yeah.
I could give you a story that nobody else in the world has got, if you want to hear it.
We want to hear it.
You do?
Yeah.
When I had a 220 in here, the first year I was in business, second year, I kept it pretty well shined up. I had it up in the yard here washing it, and we got a call to put some dust on up north, so I was in a hurry to get going, and I went out on the darn road in a crosswind, not quite as strong as this one, and in those days they had a sharp shoulder there. And so when the tail came up, it drifted over the shoulder and the wing caught the darn ditch here and it cartwheeled. Ended up on his nose and just sat there and teetered and finally it stopped. My wife, my brother, my dad, and my mother were in the yard watching this and they all come running down the road. My daddy was going to disinherit me for being a crop duster. My brother was going to beat the hell out of me. My wife was going to divorce me, and my mother was the only one that stood up for me. So I always tell these young guys to be nice to your mothers.
Yeah. This airplane's obviously had a lot of modifications. Are these the original wings? I mean, are the original wing design, or have you?
Extended.
They're extended from a stock Stearman.
These are stock wings on here, extended.
Right. Because some Stearmans have different airfoils.
There's one right. There's one over there, and there's one in here
that have different airfoils. And obviously, this has got a 450 horse engine instead of the original 220. And now it's got a liquid hopper in it, obviously, because you spray liquid with it. How many gallon does this hold?
That one there holds. That's a combination dust and spray. That one holds 230 gallons.
230 gallon.
Yeah, it'll carry it full.
Yeah.
I say they're kind of dirty, but I don't bother washing the oil off because that keeps them preserved. How do you suppose an airplane lasts this long if it wasn't oiled up?
All right, ready?
Okay, you better take. You're a big guy. You better take that out of there.
That will be okay.
I got his doing it the first time.
You don't have an airspeed indicator?
What's that?
Okay. Optional, huh?
How's that?
Optional equipment.
It's all in there.
Is it?
It's right in front of you.
In front of this pad?
The first thing you teach you, when I was checking out spray pilots, and teach them how to dust and how to spray, the first thing you teach them is keep their heads out of the cockpit. And if they got to keep looking in the cockpit, I don't pass them. I send them down the road because they're going to hit something if they get in the habit of looking in the cockpit. So you don't need nothing in there anyway. You can hear, as long as that thing is turning up there, just keep going.
Just keep flying it.
That's right.
Fly the airplane, not the wing. So how many hours do you figure this airplane has on it?
Well, just off the top of my head, I suppose it's probably coming up on 10, 12,000 hours of ag work.
That's a lot of ag work.
Yeah, it is.
How many of them are yours?
I don't know, quite a few.
Was this your airplane?
Well, it was for years. I kept different pilots flying. That's it.
How old are you?
I was born in 1920.
How many crop dusters were there when you started spraying?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good question. Talk to me.
Yep.
When you started spraying, how many crop dusters were there in North Dakota?
Well, when I started, it had already had a precedent at Grand Forks in 1942 when they got an outbreak of late blight. And they got some people that farmed potatoes in Florida knew what it was. Most of the people didn't know what a late blight was at that time. So they got a duster up here in 1942 and dusted potatoes up there, and they came out all right with their potatoes. Those that didn't get dusted that year, their potatoes went in the bins if they dug them, and they pumped them out by spring because the blight had them. So that's when it started. Now, and then they come back up there, and there were several dusters up there. And here in Fargo, there was one fellow up here dusted. I think he was from Wisconsin. Then Dwayne Strand and I, we started dusting in 1946.
With Stearman's.
Dwayne had a J3 Cub, and I had this airplane right here.
Where did you get this airplane?
I bought it down in Minneapolis.
From the government or from
No,
somebody?
I didn't buy any from the government. I bought them from the guys that did. And I bought this in Minneapolis, $550.
$550.
Yeah.
And flew it home?
Yeah, it was a good airplane.
Still is.
Well, I guess it is. We put some aluminum on the sides, and no, they're a good airplane. I metal skinned them because we started getting into products that would just melt the darn dope right off in the fuselage, and then it'd be flopping there, and I just got rid of that and metal skinned
Put
them.
metal skins on.
Yeah. We run them in Arkansas. When they come back from down there, it looked like they'd been through a war, so we started metal skinning them.
Where'd you learn to fly?
Well, in Fargo.
Before the war? Or?
Yeah. Well, in my case, I took my first flying lesson in a 37 horsepower Porterfield Zephyr. Nobody even knows what those are today. For 15 minutes. Then after that, we went to an OX5 Eagle Rock with Muggy Peterson. And then after I got some time in there, my dad bought me an OX5 Robin, and that's what I learned to fly in.
How many engine failures did you have in the OX5?
How's that?
How many engine failures did you have with an OX5?
Well, the one I had, you could depend on it quitting every 15 minutes, but it wasn't the fault of the engine. It was my fault because I didn't put a cover on the float valve. And the water pump was right above the carburetor that had leaked down in there, and get water in the carburetor and short it out.
Every 15 minutes.
This is pretty regular, yeah. But if I'd have just put a little cap on there, it would have kept running.
So you learned something.
I learned a lot. Just be ready in case this thing up there happens to quit turning around. Be ready to land. It was a good experience.
So what do you think of, looking back at almost 60 years of crop dusting, what do you think about the business?
It used to be kind of fun. We could mix fun and work together. But nowadays, with everything that's involved, is with high-priced airplanes and the farm economy, what it is, and all the regulations and everything. Some of them I think are necessary, some of them aren't. It's gotten to be mostly work.
So you think someday somebody will restore this airplane as a warbird and fly it around air shows?
The ones I've sold, that's what they've done with them.
They started out in the military, worked a career spraying, and went back to...
All right, this is about the only working ones you'll see in the country. There's a few more, but not many. Most of them have been bought up now, several thousand of them, converted back to this original configuration. I'm building a new wings right now to have something to do to sell them to those kind of people.
You're building a new Stearman right now?
The wings, yeah. I'll show them to you in the shop after a bit.
Okay.
But
Ask him about his total flying time.
Okay. How many, in 60 years, or, well, when you started in 1937, so that'd be 65 years. In 65 years of flying, how many hours of flying time do you have, Warren?
my generation that follows me, my young daughters, they all figure I've got about 30,000 hours. It's close to that.
That's a lot of years. That's a lot of time in an airplane.
Yeah, it is. These here things are just like coming out and putting on a pair of shoes. You get in there and go.
Just wear it.
How's that?
Just wear it.
Yeah, just for the ride. They'll give it to you.
So I really do have a stupid question. Where is the airspeed indicator in the altimeter?
There's supposed to be one in there someplace.
Up on the
Wake up there.
over left there.
Oh, up there. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep. So you look outside. I'll be damned.
So I was telling
There's the
you,
tack.
when I catch a pilot with his head in the cockpit, why I do something about it.
Yeah.
I had one pilot like that.
He had a power line.
Yeah, he hit a power line all right. He was flying. He come up on a end of the field, and for some reason, he couldn't keep his head off of the instruments. And so he come up, he went through a little REA line, then he hit one of these big transmission lines. And they stretched out about 300 feet, and was ready to slingshot him backwards when the big cables broke and the airplane went down and put the wheels on each side up through the bottom wings. Well, he come out of that and he called home and said he broke up the airplane, went over and got him and seen what he did.
Yeah. Well,
600 there.
yeah. Can you see him?
Yep.
That's the first one, and that was one of the last ones that I built up. I built up two of them.
2 600s.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Got a rope on the stick. Just going across the field.
This here is what we call a He-Man's airplane.
A what?
A He-Man's airplane here.
That's because.
That's a 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
Hauls 275
And you
gallons.
can see that the top of the tank's a lot higher.
Yeah, Chris, my grandson's when he flies. He's a big fellow, 6'4", and weighs about 250 pounds. This is what it takes to carry him around.
So how many of your family is still in the spraying business?
Well, just Lynn was my son-in-law. He's over at Castleton there, and Chris, he helps out whoever needs a pilot.
Does this have the same wing as the 450?
It's the same airfoil. Most of the guys, I think, made a mistake when they changed the airfoils on these airplanes. But depending on the type of work that you were going to do. But on here, you see, we had 600 out there. What I did, I enlarged this top wing 10% and retained the same airfoil.
Yep.
2213. And with the Steiger, it carries that big engine out there. So this is a perfectly balanced airplane without adding weight to the tail. And it flies like a hopped up 220 balance-wise. But when you open the throttle on one of these, you want to have it pointed where you want to go, because there's where it's going.
I believe that.
And